I have an experience that I've never shared with anyone outside of my immediate family for fear of ridicule. For context, I live in Peru, and I have done for my entire life. We have a lot of stories and legends, a lot that you may have heard before, actually. But the thing is, they're not actually legends, they are true accounts. There are things in Peru that people will dismiss, but it's only out of fear or a lack of understanding. The thing I encountered, other people have seen it too, or I suppose I should say, them. I'm not sure how many there are, or if it's the same beings being spotted multiple times. This happened when I was hanging around with a couple of friends of mine. I will call them Tiago and Enzo for the purposes of the story. My homestead is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, smack dab in a forest almost. I live in the Loreto region of Peru, and I pretty much have no neighbors anywhere near me for a good mile or so at least. My homestead, it's entirely made of wood, and it isn't really the fanciest thing ever. Growing up, I lived in a lot of poverty, and that did not exactly go away once I reached adulthood. Anyway, so I was outside with my friends near this homestead, and we had set up a bit of a campfire. We had marshmallows and some shitty canned foods that we were planning on cooking. These two guys, they grew up in a much richer part of the country. They would like to come and visit me for the experience, I guess you could call it. I think most people would find it offensive, but I wasn't really delusional about my reality. So they brought some good food and some good beer, and we would laugh and talk about the old days. The campfire that we had set up, it was a little way into the woods away from my home, just for safety. I'm always really paranoid about things like that. There are animals in the area. Some are quite dangerous too. I'm talking venomous snakes, sometimes jaguars or pumas roaming around depending on the area. They tend to stay away from fires or areas with lots of humans, so we figured that the noise we were making would not be too much of a problem. Not only that, but I obviously had a shotgun in case of emergencies, as I acquired my firearm permit as soon as I was old enough to. Tiago also owned a rifle, but Enzo didn't really believe in owning guns. The perks of being rich, right? I had a Baikal MP153 because they are dirt cheap, and even in shitty condition, they get the job done. Tiago, I think, owned a CZ527 or something like that. I don't really fully remember. I'm not really a gun expert, sorry. Anyway, it wasn't long before we both started to hear and see some weird things. The first thing that we heard was some kind of a whistling sound. It was quite loud and really grating actually. It was pretty faint at first, and us laughing and joking made it hard for us to make it out, or even realize it was there at first, but eventually it got really loud. It sounded like harsh wind rattling metal or glass and causing that heavy groaning kind of noise. It built up and built up until it felt like it was right on top of us. I heard a few cat calls the louder it got, like a jaguar roaring and then letting out a yelp. I heard twigs and branches being snapped rapidly, one after another, in a few different directions. It sounded like something with a lot of weight tore through some tall grass at pretty high speed. Then there were the lights. There was a lot of smoke coming from the campfire, and that, combined with the bright flame, it helped to drown out most of what was in the night sky. You could still see some stars and the like, but not super clearly. But at one point, I saw this light just sweeping back and forth, like coming from a helicopter, back and forth, really quickly scanning in a line. It was a strange color is what made me take notice, some kind of a turquoise hue, and it made my eyes sting a little when it hit my eyes. Like, it felt like an instinctive thing, not just because of the brightness, it felt like something else. It made my head ache a little, and my eyes were instantly streaming, like I was peeling onions. We were on alert at this point, and was wondering what the hell was going on. We saw the light sweeping back and forth a few times before stopping, and then I swear I saw something in the sky. I couldn't even really make out the shape of it at first. It was weird. It was like there was nothing there when I looked, but then I could almost see the air shimmering, and then my eyes would recognize the outline of something quite large, and in the shape of a disc, it looked like. It blended in with whatever was behind it, unless you stared for a really long time, and then you could make out the dark shape. It was hard to focus, obviously, because of that light sweeping back and forth and hurting your eyes. I saw it move. Tiago saw it too, and he was up on his feet and shouting. He was always the more brash one of us, always wanted to go storming ahead and was strong and confident. Enzo was a little more normal, I guess, and I guess I was the most apprehensive of all of us. When I saw it moving, and it moved fast, by the way, really incredibly fast. I could feel air coming in our direction, like a strong wind. I could see the leaves on trees shaking, and I felt the air hitting my face with quite a lot of pressure. It was so hard to track with my eyes, and eventually I could not see it anymore. Tiago, of course, wanted to sprint into the woods and look, but Enzo and I were refusing. Tiago had brought flashlights and other gear with him. I think exploring was his goal all along. At one point, he basically said, "Screw you, I will go on my own if I have to," and then he just ran off. He's a quick runner, and so by the time Enzo and I decided that we should run after him, he was already pretty far away. We could hear him running through the grass and stepping on twigs. At one point, we found ourselves near the edge of a clearing that had this really tall and thick grass. I am around 5'6", and it was taller than me, standing up. It basically fully concealed me. We got to near the edge of this grass, and we could hear weird sounds, and I could see a light going into the air that was rocking back and forth. I think I heard groaning. It sounded like someone was in pain. It sounded like Tiago. I pulled Enzo backwards and told him to wait, and we peeked our heads through the grass. He was annoyed with me, but I told him to be quiet, because Tiago, he was being held up into the air by something. My memory is hazy, so I will try my best with the details. There were two of these things, and they were tall, maybe around 7 feet tall. They towered over Tiago. They made him look tiny. One of them was gripping him by the throat with just one hand, and Tiago was kicking his feet while suspended in the air and trying to wriggle free. His gun had dropped down to the floor, and it seemed like he could not break free. The thing holding him up, it was really weird. It looked to be all black, but the blackness, it didn't look like the thing's skin. It looked like material, like it was actually wearing something. Tiago still had a partial grip on his flashlight, which is why it was moving so rapidly. When the light hit this thing every so often, it looked shiny almost, like maybe it wasn't skin, but I'm not sure. The head as well, the head seemed to be reflective partially. The head was green, but it had these ridges and gaps that made it look like it wasn't a head, and more like a helmet being worn, like this thing was wearing a suit of armor. The eyes were almond-shaped and red in color, but because of the pattern and the way the light reflected, it looked like the head was made of some kind of metal. The other one, it looked to be scanning around. It was crouched down low, and I could see it scanning rapidly in a full 360 degrees. The eyes moved side to side, but not like normal eyes. I could see the eyes change shape and almost retract closer to the face and get further away from the face at points. I could also hear this clinking sound whenever the eyes moved or it crouched down lower. It was so strange. This all happened quite quickly, but it was not the only look I got at the things. I told Enzo that we had to save him now and that I was going to use my shotgun. Enzo begged me not to, but I stepped out of the tall grass and shouted at whatever this thing was to drop my friend immediately. I heard the sound of grass being trampled rapidly, and I could see that out of the corner of my eyes that Enzo was running all the way back to camp. the one of those things that was low to the ground and scanning. It chased after him on all fours. I tried to go to shoot it, but I missed because the thing was too damn fast. There was nothing I could do. I had to focus on just saving Tiago right in front of me. I shouted at the thing again, but it just tilted its head to the side while looking at me. I was scared to shoot because I did not want to accidentally hurt my friend, so I started trying to circle around to get a better angle. But when I did, every time I moved my shotgun, this thing moved in parallel to me and kept holding Tiago out in front of me, like it knew what it was doing. Tiago was struggling for breath and trying to beg me for help, and I knew he was screwed if I did not do anything. His voice was really breathy and hoarse, and he could barely even get the words out of his mouth. He sounded weak, like he was about to just pass out. So I decided to just fire, but my hands were shaking, and I fucked up my shot. Half of the buckshot pellets missed, but I know I connected with a few. I heard Tiago cry out in pain because a few of the pellets skimmed across his exposed legs. I saw that I made contact with this thing in the head, but it did not do much. It stumbled back slightly and threw Tiago onto the floor, onto his ass. When the pellets hit, I think I saw something, like a brief spark or flash where they connected, but it could have just been my eyes playing tricks on me. It tossed him down to the ground casually, like it took no effort at all. At this point, things just got worse. I could hear screaming in the distance, which I knew was Enzo. It couldn't be anyone else. It sounded like he was in severe pain, like he was frightened for his life. Tiago was crawling for his gun and trying to scramble to his feet. I readied my shotgun for another attempt, but this thing did something to me. It pulled something out. I'm not sure from where. It was small, maybe slightly larger than the size of a human hand, and it was shaped oddly. It was curved in the middle and had something reflective on the end, something see-through. It pointed it outwards towards me, and by this point I had raised my shotgun and was ready to shoot the thing again. I was telling Tiago to just run back to the house and to try and get some help, maybe call the police, but he was not listening. Before I could even hit the trigger, this light just suddenly blinded me and just completely enveloped my face. Instantly, I felt every single one of my limbs just go limp. My hands instinctively let go of my weapon. I felt my legs collapse underneath me like they had just turned to jelly, and I hit the ground, knees first. It was a heavy impact, but I did not even feel the pain. I had no feeling in my legs whatsoever. All I could feel was my face. My face felt like it was on fire. I was on the ground, clutching at my face and clawing at it because it hurt so much. I couldn't even feel my arms or my hands or my fingers. When I scratched at my face, I couldn't really feel it. All I could feel was my face burning. It felt like my entire face was sizzling. I swore I could hear the sound of my own skin cooking. That light, it was similar to the light I had seen earlier sweeping across the forest, but it felt so much more intense now. It was all that I could see for a good 2 or 3 minutes while I just clawed at my own face, praying that the pain would just stop. The light faded after a while, but my vision was still spotty. When I could finally see again, I noticed I was laying on the ground, on my side. I could feel the muscles in my legs twitching and spasming, but I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I just could not move them, not even an inch. I couldn't even wiggle my toes. It was like the signals were just not reaching my muscles coming from my brain. This thing was now standing over Tiago. In fact, it was already mid-action when I could see again. I did not know how much time had passed, but it was like all sound had stopped when that light was in my face, so I had no idea what was happening. The rifle that Tiago had, it was on the ground. I could see it now, and it was in pieces. Tiago was screaming. He was screaming so loudly, but he wasn't even moving or fighting back. He had his arms by his sides, just laying flat on his back. And this thing, It looked to be holding something. I'm not sure what it was. Some kind of tool or something maybe. It looked sharp but had a curve, I think I remember, and it had it close to Tiago's face. And all I could do was watch and scream as I saw it press it close to his face and just drag it downwards ever so slowly. I could see bits of skin flicking off and his face starting to become a bloody mess, until eventually Tiago stopped screaming, and that thing, it was holding a mass of skin in its hand. I could see it. I don't know what it did with it. I didn't remember that part. I do remember it removed something from its hand, some kind of gloves, I think. It revealed what I can only describe as some kind of talon-like things where hands should be on a human. By this point, I was fading in and out of reality pretty rapidly. Nothing felt real whatsoever, and I found it really hard to focus on anything at all. Everything seemed like it was blurred in the background, like it wasn't in my main vision. My vision was becoming blurry, and it felt like time was passing so rapidly. But I know that it used these talons on Tiago. I saw it ripping more skin, and eventually jamming them into him in places until he just had these gaping holes. It removed all of his clothes and just did whatever it was doing to him. I'm not sure. At one point, I'm not sure how much time had passed by, but I felt my legs become responsive again. This thing was so focused on what it was doing, it had actually completely turned its back on me and, I don't know, forgot about me. I knew I only had one chance, and I decided to take it right then and there. I mean, what else could I do? Stay there and die? When I got up onto my feet, I could see that there was something pinned to a tree, and this thing was still over Tiago's body. His body just looked like a mess, just completely soaked in red. He was unrecognizable now. I tried to sneak away slowly, and as soon as I got into the tall grass, I just ran. I ran, and even when I fell over because my legs felt weak and they gave way, I got up and I just ran again. I ran until I got back to my homestead, and I got in Tiago's car, and I just drove away. He had left his keys inside of his car since we were so out of the way, and he didn't want to risk losing them. It took me a little while to reach the shitty police station closest to me. It was really late, and I was surprised that anyone was even there at this hour. Peru police, they're a little bit lazy, and if they can get away with it, they give you a stupid explanation and tell you to go away. They only really do their jobs if they're forced to. I didn't even know where I was driving to, really. I had not driven all that much in my life, and so I was really bad and swerving already from the panic. Well, when I got there, the police couldn't just wave anything away. It was much too serious for that. They looked shocked when they saw me. I hadn't really noticed because I did not have the time to stop and check myself over. But they showed me my face in the mirror. I had burns and marks all over my face. They looked like harsh chemical burns. I told them my story as best as I could without being too specific. I mentioned where we were, that we were attacked, that I think Tiago is dead, etc., etc. They seemed to at least believe that I was telling the truth about people being hurt. I did not see the remains myself, but they found one of them. Tiago was like I told them. They found his broken rifle and his flashlight, just like I said he would be. Enzo, I think they said they found traces of someone running in the grass and trampling things, but they never ever found a body. Still to this day, he never turned up. I don't even know what happened to him. I think I was pretty lucky that the police did not consider me the killer. I suppose they could have done that so easily and gone on with their day. But they told me that they had seen something like this before, in this very region, many, many years ago, but that it wasn't a new thing. They warned me not to talk about it, that it was a bad thing and would only bring evil on people, that I should not scare people with my story, They told me to move away to somewhere else. It's the only time I've ever seen anything so horrible in my entire life. But now, I'm finding out that many others have seen them too. Some only have injuries and escape with their lives, but that it's happened so many times that there are full witness accounts. This completely shocked me. For much of my life, I did not even have the internet, so I had no idea whatsoever. I still have a messed up face. It's all bumpy and raised from the burns, and I still have little scars on my cheek. I wish I had more details to share with you. Alright, so I actually got two stories. I was a witness in one of them, and I will write what the guys told me before they came to me. The other story happened to a friend of mine. She was really skeptical about everything before what she saw. The year this happened is 2009. It's in the first days of August. The winter is super freaky here. I'm in Chile, by the way. I'm 21 years old at the time. I work as a nurse assistant in a hospital. I work at night and just sleep in the afternoon, so I basically feel like a vampire all of the time. All I have to do is treat a few patients and take care of them. It gets to 2 a.m. on my shift and I am incredibly bored. I decide to help the security staff because the wind moved a sheet of metal in front of a camera outside the building. The security guy tells me to stay and he will check, but I told him to stay and that I will do it for him because he was as old as a mummy. I go outside. The sky is clear, which is weird because it was raining just a few hours ago. I remove the sheet. Everything is fine. Suddenly I hear two voices yelling out for help. I hear someone running through a long grass field. I look into that direction, and I poorly saw two guys running like if the devil were chasing them. They see me and run to me. They went through a wired fence just to get to me. They were bleeding and crying. I thought they were burglars and someone maybe chased them, but they were wearing quite fancy clothing. When I was about to ask them to come inside to treat their wounds and call the police, I hear something from the direction from where they came from. It was like a humming noise. It was low, but it sounds incredibly loud inside my head. Then I saw a figure going upwards. It was a bright and orange reddish color. It was whiter at the center. This thing changed its shape, like if it went from a shape akin to a toy soldier to a ball. It shot straight up through the skies and left some dim glowing light on its wake. I was really shocked. The guys carried me to the hospital. In fact, that is how shocked I was. Security asked me what happened. One of the guys told us they were fixing some farming equipment. They were about to leave when they saw something crashing near the barn. They were about 50 meters away or so from the barn when they heard the same noise that I heard, and then they saw a figure crouching down. They flashed their flashlights at the thing, and then it stood up. They said it was like 3 meters tall, and it started hovering and moving closer to them. Needless to say, they ran away as fast as they possibly could. Apparently, this thing could go through the fences. Apparently this thing even fired something that landed next to a fence and left burnt grass. The guys apparently ran until they reached me. The next day, the police saw the spot where the grass was burned, and it was still hot. I moved away from that hospital because I was finishing my practice. I will now write down the other one since I'm done with my lunch. It's not a night shift story, but it's still creepy, and it's about my friend. She studies law at Santiago. She lives with her sister. This happened around 2011 or so. It was 9 p.m. She was just reading some books for her next test. The lights suddenly go out. She goes to check if her niece is okay. She is fine, so my friend goes to her room to rest. Then she hears static, like when the TV gets gray and starts buzzing. That shit is getting louder. She is getting really worried. She runs to her room when she sees something that looks like a guy in an old diving suit materializing in front of her. She starts whimpering, and this thing looks at her and then just vanishes. She had to go to a psychologist because of that. She even had to suspend her year. So this happened to me in Chile. I was in the Atacama desert. working in the copper mines. I live in San Pedro at the weekend and go to the small village that the company built for workers in the week, La Escondida. It's a pretty good life, 10 out of 10. Tourists come by sometimes. There is good food and I can travel to nearby touristy places on weekends. I am in charge of monitoring some guys so that they do not screw things up, and if they do screw things up, then I have to fix it. So, it's a Wednesday. I get a call from the boss of my boss. He had a really high rank in the company. He tells me to pick up my things and leave ASAP, and tell the guys that I watched to do the exact same thing. I ask him if there was an accident of some kind, maybe a chemical spill or a gas leak. He tells me to just get out right now, and he will tell me later. Okay, I'm not gonna wait around. I start calling on each and every single one, and I tell them exactly what to do, the exact protocol. They ask questions, but I tell them that I just don't know, and that probably the boss is giving us the free week. This one guy, Francisco, he does not answer the phone. He's probably drunk or something. After around 1 hour of trying to call him, I decide to go there. He's probably injured from the possible chemical spill or gas leak. I go to his house. There is no answer. Probably someone else called him and told him to leave before I could. I call the boss of my boss. I tell him about Francisco. He doesn't care about him and yells at me for still being there. Okay, fine, I'll leave. Suddenly, 2 soldiers start looking at my car. There is a military base pretty close by, so they are probably here helping to evacuate people because of the accident. They ask me what I'm doing here. I tell them about the whole situation and that I'm leaving now. They tell me I can't leave right now. I ask them why. They don't say anything specific, just that I can't leave. What am I supposed to do now? I keep asking questions about what should I do and why can't I leave. They eventually detain me. Holy shit, what? They put me on the military truck and they start driving. I ask them where they are taking me. They tell me it's to a nearby police station. Okay, I'm not going to talk anymore because shit could go very wrong if they get mad at me. About 15 minutes go by and I'm just silent. I hear a radio start going off. There's a code name at the start, and then they say, evacuate as soon as possible to the base. The gringos are going to take care of it, sending them in the Puma, which is a helicopter. I'm like, oh shit, what? I start to panic, thinking there was another coup or some shit like that. They talk between them, and I cannot really hear what they are saying. They look at me, and they give me a look that makes me think, oh shit, they are going to kill me. They get to a military checkpoint. One of them go down and enter some office. Now the soldier comes back with another soldier, probably, and an officer or something. I don't know about military ranks. They ask me questions. They ask me if I saw something. I tell him about what happened before the soldiers came. He says okay, and asks me again if I saw something weird. That's all he'll say. If I saw something weird. I tell him that I did not see anything. I'm almost shitting my pants at this point. Then he tells me that they were doing a drill for an earthquake. I don't believe him. When we do that, they usually tell me first, and I do not get detained by soldiers. He tells me I cannot tell anyone what I saw. I tell him again, I didn't see anything weird. Then he looks at me and tells me I cannot leave now because I assaulted a soldier. What? They put me in a small jail cell. Oh shit. They really are going to kill me. I eventually just get really tired and go to sleep. I was just exhausted from the entire day, and I think the mental stress of it all really did not help. It gets to around 3 a.m., and I am woken up because I can hear the sounds of a chopper, and I also hear the sounds of people shouting. I am freaking out just hearing all of this from my cell where I cannot see anything. Then I hear a chopper take off, and then I fall back asleep. I wake back up again in the morning. They take me to a police station in a city nearby, Calama. The cop tells me that I was mistaken for a missing person, and they let me go. I call the boss of my boss and tell him what happened. He does not say anything. He just says it's all okay now. He doesn't explain why he told me to leave or why I got arrested or anything. A couple of weeks later, I got sent to the capital to work at an office of a company. I never knew what happened there. I never found out. This happened around 2005, by the way. If anyone has any speculation or explanation, that would really, really help me out.